All right, and we're back to answer more of your asks. Let's just dive right in. One thing that always made me so mad for Beth fans and for Emily is the fact that her supposed last season, she never got to do commentary on a single episode for season 5. I don't think I ever realized that. She had a whole bottle episode and a death episode that broke the internet, but no, we got nothing from her. Why the hell not? I could understand her not wanting to do 508, but come on, not even 504. Yeah, I mean, that is suspicious. So I never really owned the DVDs because I've always watched it in a more streaming capacity. I own some of them on Amazon, but you don't get the same extras when you do that. I don't think I realized that she never did any commentary. I mean, I never really thought about it either way, but I could kind of understand why not. I mean, I'm with you 100%. It's really suspicious. And if she's dead and gone and not coming back, I think they would have her do commentary on both of those episodes, you know. So the fact that she didn't is super suspicious. But I understand why they wouldn't if she is coming back, because one thing we learned in the year or so after Coda was that Emily really has no poker face. I mean, she's very sweet and very shy, and bless her heart, she has a really hard time lying. So whenever someone asks her something point blank and she has to lie about it, she gets super nervous and fidgety, and it's just, it's really obvious. So I can see them not wanting her to do commentary and, you know, just worrying that she would slip and say something she wasn't supposed to say or get really nervous or something. So there's that. The other thing is that I think it would be really hard to talk about some of these episodes without talking about what they actually mean. So, I mean, yeah, when people do commentary, they talk about their experiences filming and some of the things they did to prepare and stuff like that. But I think most of the cast has always known what was going on and that she would be leaving and coming back. And so it would be hard to talk about making these episodes knowing that and you know, what is honestly going on in the episode without giving things away. So I think in order to get around that from any of the actors, you know, not just Emily, they just didn't do much commentary because they want it to remain mysterious, you know, and so I understand why they would do that, but you're right that it just even more points to the fact that there's more going on than they're telling us, and it's really mysterious and kind of vague, and that, you know, this is probably a big fake out. So yeah, good point, and I agree. What do you think about The Walking Dead overall as a show? I personally think it's a great show, maybe except for season 7 and 8, just some episodes were good. But I think a lot of people don't see that. Like, people I know, they don't really like the show and say it's boring for whatever reason. I didn't watch any of the spin-offs yet, except Fear the Walking Dead. I gotta say that was good until season 4 happened. I didn't watch season 7 or 8 yet, but I plan to. You know, it's just a taste thing. And unfortunately in our society, films and television shows tend to be very, very fast-paced. And if they're not, people lose interest. So I love The Walking Dead. I love everything about it. I love all the characters and all the character arcs. And I think the writing is genius, and I'm just here for it. As a writer, I can appreciate the writing. I think watching it and especially analyzing it like I do has made me a better writer and a better storyteller. So I love that about it. It is a long game. I mean, I've heard so many people say that, you know, once you get into the later seasons, they're just killing off characters willy-nilly without any plan. And that's not true. It's absolutely not true. But if you're not watching the show really, really carefully, I can see why it would come across that way. So, and you know, maybe there's something to be said, too, for telling a story and making sure that you don't lose your audience. Maybe sometimes they move a little too slowly and they start to lose the audience, and I get that. But for me, I love the show. I've never really had any complaints about it. And I think it's because I've always watched it for the Beth symbolism. So even during the episodes that a lot of people didn't like season 8, I was still watching for the symbolism, and I could still see it. So I was never bothered by the fact that maybe the pacing was a little bit slower. For the record, I think that pretty much all of All Out War was a foreshadow for the CRM war. So if you go back and watch it now with an eye toward what's going on with the CRM, it has a whole different meaning. So just keep that in mind. But it's not like, even when it was on, I didn't know that. We didn't really know anything about the CRM back then. I was picking out things that I was going, I don't know what this means, but I'm sure it means something. And only now are we starting to understand what that means. So, I mean, I get why some people it's not to their taste. I really do. But for me, I love it and I'm here for it. And, despite how many people say they don't like it or how many people say it's too slow or they don't like it that they kill off the characters or whatever, this is still the most in-demand show in the world. Okay. Daryl Dixon has the best ratings that anything has had that the TWD universe has put out so far. But there were times when Game of Thrones was on and the ratings were better for Game of Thrones than they were for The Walking Dead. And I'm sure that was true of House of the Dragon too. But The Walking Dead has just amazing staying power because even though it may have lost some of its audience as compared to seasons 4 and 5, it's still, after all these years and after all these spin-offs, the most the most in-demand show in the world. And that is been made very obvious by the ratings on the Daryl Dixon show. So even though a lot of people say that, keep in mind that this is one of the most successful shows in the world. And that means that it's one of the most successful shows in the history of TV. So yeah, there's of course always going to be complainers and people who rag on it and everything. But so what? I mean, if you like it, stick with it. And I certainly like it and I'm going to stick with it. That's all I can say. And I think that when Beth is finally revealed as alive, a lot of those people who haven't watched it for a long time are going to come back really fast. So I'm excited for that. All right. What season did the powers that be initially plan for Beth's return before the 2020 pandemic that changed the course and delayed it? We don't know. There's no way for us to know that. I think it slowed it down. I would say maybe it was going to be season 10 or 11, but I don't know. I think they were always planning on it being years before Beth and Daryl came back together. But there's just no way for us to know the details because none of us, work for AMC. So I really couldn't tell you. I just think it was probably a little bit earlier than it has turned into. That's all. Okay. Next one. Not a Bethyl shipper. I personally hope and believe that she comes back as a woman who doesn't need a man to survive. However, I'm not going to dismiss or invalidate it because there's absolutely no denying the chemistry Bethyl had that was like no other couples in the show, and Bethyl is going to happen whether people like it or not. I agree. And as for coming back, I mean, your point about her, being a woman who doesn't need a man, I think that's going to happen anyway. I think she will be a major survivor, and she'll be a lot like Daryl in that he doesn't need a woman to survive, certainly. But when you don't need someone and you're super independent, you still want someone. You still want companionship. So I think that she will be a lot like Daryl that way. I think she will be 100% independent and not need someone, but she'll be lonely and she'll still want to be with him. So I think everything you said will be exactly how she returns. And I 100% agree that it's happening whether people want it to or not. But keep in mind that 95% of the fandom really does and will want it. It's only the ones who are of a different ship, who are very loud and toxic online, who will be screaming their lungs out on the internet, but they do not represent the majority of the TWD fan base. So just something to keep in mind, but thank you for sending that in. Okay, next one. If Daryl and Carol went back and informed Team Family of getting a lead of Beth's whereabouts after seeing a Grady car driving past, do you think Maggie would have changed her mind about going to DC with Abraham and his group? Would she have joined in with Rick going to Grady and be present for the trade exchange? Yeah, probably. I mean, I think everything would have happened differently if Daryl and Carol had gone back in first, because I don't even think it's a matter of would Maggie have gone to DC. It's a matter of she would have gone with Daryl and Carol to go find Beth. I have no doubt about that if she had known about it. But at the same time, if they had waited and not jumped in the car right then and followed, they probably would have lost the car and they would have never found her because they couldn't have known. I mean, it was miles and miles and back into the city, and there's no way they could have known that's where the car was going. That's why they had to jump in right then and follow, so they didn't lose that cruiser. So sure, if they'd have told Maggie about it, I think everything would have been different and changed. But at the same time, they might not have figured out where Beth was had they done that, or at least not right when they did. It might have taken a lot longer. So yeah, it's just one of those things that becomes has kind of a destiny feel to it, because you change one thing and maybe you change other things, but you also invalidate other things, so it still wouldn't have happened exactly the same way. So yeah, but it's an interesting question. It's always interesting to think about those things. Some spoilers, filming spoilers for S2. They were filming close to the Italian border. Do you think Beth is there? I don't know. Could be. I think it's kind of fun that they're moving around and going to different places, because it's a way of showing that the entire world is affected by this, not just the American continent. And I was telling my fellow theorist the other day that after seeing the Grady and the Juno, which is an Alaska symbol, in this last episode, when seeing those two names together, those two symbols together, I almost feel like maybe they're going to end up in Alaska on the way back or something. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they go to Italy or if they go to different places. I just think they're having fun with being able to move them around and show us different things and expand the universe that way. So I don't know, but I'd be okay if she was, It'd be interesting to see where they go with it. Thank you. All right, next one. Hi, I stay decently active watching your blog, but I haven't been watching TWD since Glenn and Abraham, really. In one of your videos, you mentioned Beth's voice in 905, and I decided to watch Rick's hallucinations, thirsting for a Beth mention in the show. And of course, I'm sure you noticed everything, but I just needed a place to freak out about just how much emphasis was on Beth. Like, there's her voice, then Rick mentions her to Herschel, and then there's all the bodies where she, clean and yellow, sticks out like a sore thumb in a sea of gray. And then, just in case you hadn't noticed her before, they zoom all the way in and pan over her just to make sure she's noticed. For a minor character with no true burial or ending, where the rules that typically apply to major character deaths in filming and editing did not apply, she sure as hell got a lot of focus there. I'm shocked at how clearly they wanted her in the forefront of the audience's minds. Holy crap. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I always point this out, but they actually didn't name her in the audio, which is, that sticks out to me like a sore thumb, because you had people who were alive and then you had people who had died. So, we heard Abraham's voice, for example, and he was long dead by then, right? But when it had his voice, it said Abraham, and then in the closed captioning, it had his name and then what he was saying. So they had the names of whoever was speaking in case you didn't recognize the voice right away. Now, all of us follow Emily close enough and listen to her music that we would recognize her voice. But when they had her speak, the closed captioning said woman. It did not say Beth. And that was really odd to me. Why would they do that? That singled her out from among the others who were all dead. And she is not. Now, I do think that we heard Morgan's voice a few times, so not everybody whose voice we heard was dead, but they named everyone whose voice we heard except hers. So it was just another way of singling her out. And then, like you said, they panned in. They made sure that we saw her. They made sure that she was laying not directly next to, but fairly close to Daryl, that she stood out in her clothing. There was the fact that there was blood all over her arm, which was not true in Coda. She had the blood on her head, but it looked almost like there was an injury to her arm, which was really odd. And the other thing to remember, too, is people, a lot of people who are skeptics like to say, well, yeah, but if she was with the dead, doesn't that show that she's actually dead? And the answer is no, because number one, this is Rick's hallucination and he thinks she's dead. So we're seeing something that he believes, not necessarily something that's reality. But the other thing is we saw a lot of other people lying around her dead who are not dead in real life. So she was laying next to Daryl. Obviously, Daryl's not dead. And this was Rick fearing that everybody he loved and was trying to protect would die on him. This was part of his hallucination. So it was definitely really interesting. And I agree. There was a lot of emphasis there and a lot of singling her out in a way that they didn't do with any other characters. And I think the reason that they did that when Rick was leaving is because wherever he's going to the CRM, that's the storyline that we're going to finally see Beth entangled in. So he was just on his way to, the arc that is going to lead to her in some way. So yeah, really, really great observations. And I 100% agree. And I love it. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there for today, but I will be back tomorrow with more. Bye.